You know what? These days, it seems like we are trained just to think, okay, I'm going somewhere. I can always get an Uber, a Lyft, or another ride service. But what happens if there is an accident when you're in one of those ride sharing programs? Interesting question. Have you thought about it? Well, I know someone who has, and that's Catherine Stone, who's with us again from Injury Florida Law. Catherine, good morning.
Good
How are
morning.
you today?
Good. How are you?
I'm well. I mean, we do. We hop into the Ubers, we hop into the Lyfts. We probably don't even give it a second thought until it may be too late.
Right. It's interesting with the rideshare companies in general. They've changed a lot of the laws, or they've brought a lot of things to our attention. And one of those being is in the state of Florida, they did change the law that your Uber drivers and your Lyft drivers must have, while they are on the clock, at least a minimum of $1 million in coverage. And if they're not on the clock, then they have to have a minimum of 50,000 in coverage. But then it becomes tricky as well as to at what time did the accident actually take place, and is it their fault? If it's the Uber or Lyft driver's fault, were they in the process of picking up a fare? Were they transporting a passenger? Were they off duty, on duty? And so all of those things have to come into play. And everyone says, oh, well, Uber and Lyft have their own, $1 million policies. Well, oftentimes those don't kick in until after the actual driver's policy has kicked in. And there's another interesting company out there that is becoming more popular, and we're starting to see it more often. It's called Turo, where basically you rent people's cars in a certain vicinity. I have one right now where an individual leased their car to another private individual, but through the company Turo. And Turo does have insurance coverage. However, the driver also was required to have insurance coverage with a different insurance company. And so there is a lot of debate and argument going on back and forth as to who's primary. And right now they're taking the position that the driver's insurance is primary and not Turo. So there's a lot that goes into when something is involved with these kinds of companies.
So, Catherine, I like it when we have steps to do. And I know we've been able to talk about this in other situations and scenarios. But if you do find yourself in an accident and thankfully you are not injured, at the time, you're able to walk, you're able to talk, you're able to get out. What do you do as a passenger? We're trained that if there is an accident, you make sure and get the other driver's information right away. Do you still do those steps, or what do you tell
still
people?
Need to make sure that you have the driver of the Lyft or Uber's information. It's always best to have a formal driver's exchange done with police officers, if you can get a police officer to do one. And it's so important to not only, make sure you have a copy of that Uber or Lyft driver's license, his credentials through Uber or Lyft, or her credentials. So it's not don't just walk away thinking it's going to be taken care of, because it may not be. It's actually quite a lengthy process.
I'm assuming you don't have to be the one. The driver themselves should report it to the company, but should you also contact the company itself?
Absolutely, because there may be no guarantee that the driver reports it, especially if no formal police report is being done.
So if you go ahead, report, do the steps that you think, but then a situation like, the Turo one, for instance, it seems like this may be an ever-changing world. Who is that primary insurance? Is that what you're seeing on your end, whether we're talking about Uber, Lyft, or a Turo situation?
So for instance, the driver's exchange with the Turo accident listed the Turo insurance. And we later were able to discover and obtain the insurance for the actual driver himself.
If you do find yourself in a situation and, we hear the other, the legal ads all the time, give this person a call, give this person a call. I mean, is it smart to go ahead and get someone like yourself on their team, since this is kind of this ever-changing world right now with this whole new ride-sharing, car-sharing programs we're seeing?
Yes, because there's, again, so many different elements and so many people that have to be involved in the decision-making process. It can become overwhelming for a lot of people. And honestly, that's why my last client contacted me. She became overwhelmed with the process in general and not getting answers.
Well, this is a situation we have yet to talk about, so I'm so glad we did today. And to help you from feeling overwhelmed if you're in this or any other legal situations, just reach out. Catherine and her team's more than willing to help. There's the phone number and website. Catherine, as always, thanks for being with us.